Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Monday night version of the Real and the Rare. I'm Scott Morgan, Roth the Motor City Madmouth, along with the X-Man, Xavier McKnight. And Xavier, we have our pretty very comprehensive football show, so go ahead and lead it off with the game in progress of San Francisco 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks in Santa Clara.
Well, once again, good evening, everyone. And Scott, last time I checked, this game was scoreless. But the San Francisco 49ers defense was already wreaking havoc all over Russell Wilson last time I checked. So, this team is for real. Both of these are two really good football teams, but I really think the 49ers are the real deal. And there were a lot of interesting things in the NFL that happened yesterday. In particular, the New Orleans Saints completely coming out and laying an egg against the Atlanta Falcons at home. And all of these things will determine a factor on home field advantage in the NFC. The Packers, they did a great job of holding off Carolina yesterday, even though some will call the very last play of that game very controversial. I can see why they would say that. I believe it was a stop, but some people believe that Christian McCaffrey may have actually squeezed the ball into the end zone. I don't know. Minnesota Vikings and Dallas Cowboys, a showdown on Sunday Night Football. The Dallas Cowboys completely proving why the only thing holding them back from Super Bowl contention is a legit head coach. Let's go back to the San Francisco 49ers and Seattle Seahawks. Russell Wilson came into this game looking like the premier leader in the NFL MVP voting. But I got to say, Scott, Lamar Jackson definitely gave him a run for his money yesterday.
Sure did. If you're a fantasy owner of Lamar Jackson, paid you a lot of big-time dividends, that's for sure. So let's talk about a game I have a little bit of an interest in, and that's the Detroit Lions, Chicago Bears. Matthew Stafford's 136th game streak comes to an end. Jeff Driscoll, who previously played for the Cincinnati Bengals, the new starter. Tough times for Detroit.
Yeah, we're a long way from where we were a few weeks ago, where the Detroit Lions looked like they were going to be a legitimate threat to teams in the NFC, whether they were going to get into the playoffs or not. They look like one of those teams that could potentially play spoiler for some teams, but the rails are completely falling off. Matthew Stafford is out injured. Kerryon Johnson's out injured. It just feels like everything is starting to fall apart there. So I'm going to be very interested in seeing if Matt Patricia can somehow bring this thing back together.
Yeah, the words tough luck definitely define that franchise for sure. So hopefully the Lions will have a tough one this weekend against the Dallas Cowboys.
And Scott, I didn't mean to almost cut you off there, but when we're talking Detroit Lions, I feel that we have to bring up some horrific, terrible news that we learned earlier this afternoon. Former Detroit Lions wide receiver, number 2 overall pick in 2003, and a star wide receiver at Michigan State, Charles Rogers. He passed away earlier this morning at the age of 38 years old. So, when we're talking about the Detroit Lions, I know he didn't do much for the organization at all, but, God rest the young man. Will God rest his soul, and, prayers and condolences and thoughts to his family at this time. It's a really tough time right now in the state of Michigan, too. In the sports world, you have Cassius Winston, the basketball star at Michigan State. He lost his brother, and, Scott, I know that this is a football show, but I have to lament to what I watched and what I saw last night. The courage from that young man last night, a day after learning about the death of his brother who was hit by a train, just a horrifically terrible accident. And he goes out, and he not only does he play, Scott, he starred in the game. He recorded a double-double with 17 points and 11 assists. And this morning he came out with a very heartfelt letter to his late brother. I haven't had a chance to take a look at that yet, but it's a tough time right now in the state of Michigan as far as the sports landscape goes, all the way around.
Yeah, that's true. Thanks for bringing both of those things up. Charles Rogers was actually picked over Andre Johnson, who ended up going to Houston. You talk about a slide down. One player becomes a player that went into the Ring of Honor. The other one, unfortunately, gets the stereotype bust. And he had broke his collarbone a couple of times. Only had 4 touchdowns in his 2-year career, and of course he was riddled with drug problems. So yeah, it's just one of those tough things where a great college player doesn't translate into the pros. Bad luck, bad circumstances, but indeed our thoughts and prayers go to both of his families that you definitely had mentioned for sure. So we'll see what happens. I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you.
Yes, of course. It's only right that we pay our respects to the fallen and their families and everyone who's going through a very difficult time with all of this stuff right now. We usually save this stuff for the real and rare edition on Wednesday, but when real life hits, it doesn't matter what the show is supposed to be about. We should touch on those issues. And, once again, condolences to the Rogers family, condolences to the Winston family, and well done to Cassius Winston just for being able to go out last night and show the courage that he showed out there on the floor. I mean, that was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, without a doubt. So on more NFL news, how about the Miami Dolphins? Quietly, 2-game winning streak. Everybody thought they were going to go 0-16, but Brian Flores has been playing very hard. Ryan Fitzpatrick has led him to 2 wins. As for the Josh Rosen experiment, the Dolphins are trying to get some wins. So I don't think they evidently are worried about Tua, who I really wonder would be worth the top pick overall in the draft anyways when Joe Burrow's out there. But
I'm glad that you brought that up, Scott, because, the Dolphins have come a long way from week 3, where they looked absolutely abysmal. The team is playing hard. I believe now it's very early on, but it's safe to say that Brian Flores may be the one Belichick disciple who will actually end up panning out to be a successful head coach in the league. The list goes on and on of guys who have and guys who currently are still struggling with that. People don't give Bill O'Brien, his credit for what he's doing in Houston. He deserves credit for that as well, but I'm very happy for Brian Flores and how hard his team's playing for him, because I want everyone to keep this in mind. Most of the guys who are out there on the field for the Miami Dolphins right now, most of those guys wouldn't be on an NFL roster anywhere else. They're playing with a lot of backup players on their roster right now. And they have players who are also hurt as well. So for them to pull it together and to play as hard as they did yesterday, as hard as they did last week, they've been playing hard for the last 4 weeks, Scott. So we knew that eventually a win was coming around the corner. And I agree with you on your point about Joe Burrow being the number 1 overall pick, which is exactly why I still believe there's a chance Tua ends up in Miami. Because I don't believe Tua's worth being the number 1 overall pick anymore, simply because he's proven himself now to be too injury prone. Scott, when I saw him limping at the end of the LSU and Alabama game on last Saturday, I may be wrong about this now, depending on how the college football playoff standings come out tomorrow evening. But Scott, I really walked away from that believing that this could very well be the last college game we see Tua Tagovailoa play. And if it is, no one should have a problem with that, because he didn't look ready to play in the game at all. He battled like a warrior, but he shouldn't have been out there on that field that day. And I can only just think, did he hurt himself even more physically going out there and battling the way he did? Because LSU put an excellent game plan together. They made him have to play on that bad ankle and really rely on it. And you saw a few times in that game where his foot got stuck on the turf and stuck in the grass, and it's like they really had him running around out there. And it's like, when I saw him just limping the way he was at the end of the game, I thought, is this it? Does he decide that it's time to put an end to this? It's time for me to focus on getting healthy. It's time for me to get ready for the draft combine and the NFL draft. And if he were to make a decision like that, I don't think anybody should judge him based upon that either.
So
we'll have to watch for the college football playoff standings, because the AP rankings came out yesterday, and Alabama was still only fell 1 spot in the rankings. So he went from 3 to 4. And it's going to be very interesting to see if the College Football Playoff Committee also agrees with that.
Can I ask you a question? Do me a favor.
Yes.
Count to 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Good. Brian Flores got a 5-year contract by Stephen Ross. Period. Okay. So obviously they thought enough of Flores to give him 5 years to get this thing straightened out. They've traded a lot of high-profile players. Kenyon Drake goes to the Cardinals. Minkah Fitzpatrick goes to the Steelers. And I'm sure there's plenty of other ones I haven't even mentioned. But Laramie Tunsil goes to the Texans, but they're getting a boatload of draft choices. So any winning that they can do right now, to me, for the Dolphins, is just important to build on. And I guess I wonder where Josh Rosen's going to wind up, but that'll be for another day. I know I want to go over some more other NFL games, and then we'll go back to the college ranks as well, if I may, please. Okay, how about the Oakland Raiders last week going out there and winning their 5th game against the Chargers? Got to give those Raiders credit. They're playing their hearts out in their final year in Oakland.
Not only are they playing their hearts out, Scott, but the Kansas City Chiefs also lost yesterday.
Right.
So it's like this is a real race now in the AFC West with the Raiders and the Chiefs. And the Raiders, they're the better positioned team right now. The only position the Kansas City Chiefs are really winning at by default would be the quarterback position, because Patrick Mahomes was still absolutely spectacular yesterday. But, I have to give you your kudos and your props on this, because I bought into this the way that some of the other NFL pundits and former players were talking about this. It looked like that Chiefs defense was finally turning a curve, and that they were at least finally developing a pass rush up front with that front seven. And we saw anything but that yesterday. That was absolutely an atrocious performance by the Kansas City Chiefs defense on yesterday. And they really can't run the ball. I'm not sure why LaShawn McCoy did not play yesterday. Someone who works for Bleacher Report, I don't know who it was, they came out with a push notification hours before the game that said low management for LaShawn McCoy. I believe that was just a slight jokingly stab in the ribs to the NBA for what they have going on with load management right now. But it's just a mess out there right now. And you have to depend on Patrick Mahomes to basically do everything in his power to keep you in games. He had over 400 yards passing yesterday, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and it still wasn't good enough to win the game.
Well, Xavier, the one constant that you have with the Kansas City Chiefs is their defense isn't great. I don't care how many times you change the defensive coordinator. And if the Chiefs can convince me that their defense is good, I will take them seriously. But they haven't done that yet, Xavier. They have not done that. And, they're too one-dimensional. Why McCoy isn't running the football? Go figure. Don't get it. Don't understand it. We'll wonder. I mean, Andy Reid has proven to me that he's a good regular season coach. Yes, he did get the Philadelphia Eagles to the Super Bowl once, only for them to lose. But other than that, he's a good regular season coach. Now he's arguably has one of the better quarterbacks in the league and can't get that much mileage out of him. So we'll see what happens. So what other games stand out with you over the weekend?
The Cleveland Browns finally were able to get a win, even though it came against the Buffalo Bills, who I had absolutely no trust in anyway, simply because I believe they're a limited football team. But a win is a win in the NFL, and the offense, they did enough to be able to win the game, even though I saw some pretty egregious things out there on the field yesterday. Scott, when I saw that they had a drive in which they were on their 2-yard line of Buffalo, and all they had to do was get 2 yards to get into the end zone on 8 different plays, and they ended up walking away, and this was earlier in the game, without any points. That just sums up Freddie Kitchens and his whole entire tenure there for me. Even though the Browns won yesterday, I still don't take them very seriously. And it's just simply because Freddie Kitchens is the head coach. And that's nothing against Freddie Kitchens in particular. I don't know Freddie Kitchens. I'm pretty sure Freddie Kitchens is a nice guy. But he is still well in over his head when it comes down to being a head coach in the NFL.
Well, he doesn't belong in it. He doesn't, in my opinion, belong. He'll be a one and done this year, head coach wise. The Packers and the Carolina Panthers was a game I watched quite a bit, and I found that Christian McCaffrey will get his yards, but Aaron Rodgers, to me, with all due respect, is doing what Jimmy Johnson really wanted to do with Dan Marino. It's not about passing numbers. They wanted to establish a running game. And you know what? I got to give Green Bay credit. They have ball control, a running attack, and, throw when you have to. that's what Jimmy Johnson tried to instill here in Miami. So, got to give Matt LaFleur a lot of kudos over there. I really do.